responding to reality versus reacting to perception. So we want to look at what's more important, responding to the actual reality or just reacting to perception unconsciously without being so consciously aware of what you're reacting to. So why this matters? If you think about it, reactions based on distorted perception can damage relationships, cause missed opportunities, missed possibilities. They can even escalate conflict. So maybe this has happened to you before, where you incorrectly reacted to a perception that you had, maybe without being really curious and asking certain questions. So I'm going to give you some practical tips why responding to reality is not only more important and maybe better, it's also a lot easier than you think. So some of the benefits of this is if you're responding to objective reality, this can increase your emotional intelligence, which means that you'll have more emotional maturity. It will improve your overall state, how you feel internally, maybe give you more peace of mind, and give you things like resilience, consistency. People will see that you're reliable. They'll want to network with you. They'll want to have a relationship with you. So it's really interesting that just making a small shift in your mind, deciding to do something and giving yourself permission to respond to reality, it will not only give you a better awareness of the reality inside of you and around you, it will bring you more abundance. And that's our natural state, really, abundance and love. Anything else, it's just trying to trick us, distort our perception, distort our reality. So there's a few things that you can do to start to respond to the reality and create the reality that you want, because that's what this channel is all about. It's about creating your ideal future. And if you create your ideal future, that means that you start to get predictable results. So what does that mean? That means that the more you respond to your reality using these strategies, these tips, you will create exactly what you want without really thinking about it. And if someone were to ask you what you want to do, you would be able to just predict what's going to happen next. So the first thing that you want to do, or you can do, depends. Maybe you use these different strategies in different conversations, situations, meeting with people, whatever it is. So the first thing you want to do to respond to the actual reality. Now with all of these, when you're responding, you also want to have a filter there, like a buffer. You also want to think, how I'm responding. Am I responding to what this situation truly is? So that means you're not going to rush to judgment. You're not going to decide right away that you need to do something. So that's what we want to keep in mind with these different strategies. Are you responding to the actual reality? So the first one, you want to take a pause before reacting. So check in with your mind, with yourself, with how you're seeing things. You may ask, is this true? Or how I feel right now? So before you respond, pause. Ask yourself a question. Maybe the reality that you're responding to is something you created. That would make sense because we create our reality. Someone asked me the other day, they said, what do you do when you kind of get down in your thoughts? What's something that you do? And I said, well, one thing is I focus on my breathing for a few minutes. I change something in my physiology, so I have a different physiological response. And I said the next thing that I do is I ask myself a question. How did I decide to create this? Now, this is an interesting question because for some people it makes them feel a bit uncomfortable. When you say, how did I decide to create this? And if it's a situation that you don't really want, guess what? You're going to have to take responsibility for it, aren't you? So it's really an interesting question to ask. So how did I decide to create this? So pause before you react. Don't react right away. Listen. Be really curious and have a willingness to experiment by asking different questions. So is this true? Is this the reality should I be responding to? So think about things like this before you just react, respond. Number 2, maybe you want to ask someone you trust. Maybe seek a second perspective. Me personally, I know when I'm doing a good job, so most of the time I entrust my internal instincts. Now, other people, they're more external. In order for them to know they're doing a good job, they like someone to tell them. So before you react to certain situations, or if you're communicating with someone, maybe ask them a question. Or if someone else is there, maybe ask them what they think, if you trust them. So you can always seek a second perspective before just responding to the reality. You can ask them, this is what I think about this. Is this what you're getting out of the situation too? Or do you see something totally different? And then that may help you see something that you didn't see, or maybe that confirms that what you are seeing is right, and then you can respond. Number 3, you want to regulate before you respond or evaluate the situation. Sometimes, like I mentioned earlier, this is one thing to do in this part, is focus on your breathing, change something in your physiology. Or maybe you need to take personal space, or maybe you need to revisit the situation later. Even when I'm doing trainings, most of the questions that people ask, I can always answer them. And a lot of times I even respond with certain stories about how I may have helped a client or something like this. So the wonderful thing is you can revisit the situation. So if I don't know an answer to a question, I can tell them, you know what, that's a really good question. I think the answer is this. However, if you allow me to research this a bit further after today's lesson, tomorrow or the next time we meet, I can definitely share what the answer is. Would that be okay with you? Most people are always going to be okay with this because it shows that you actually care and you're curious and you want to do something. So it's okay to take a deep breath, take some space, or revisit the situation too. If you're not 100% sure if that's the reality, then this is what you can do to build the relationship further. All of these are going to build deeper rapport with the person. That's what's really interesting, is by responding to the correct reality, it's going to show them that you care. And the last one, you're going to want to ask better questions. So like I said, how did I decide to create that? That's something I asked to myself. But maybe you need to ask questions to the other person to determine if that's the real reality. What else could this mean? Tell me a bit more about that. What are you seeing, hearing, and feeling right now? Can you describe that a bit further for me so we can both understand what's going on here? So, or what specifically, or how specifically, compared to what? So we want to ask different questions, preferably how questions, what questions, because we're asking why. It's just going to have the person tell us their excuses. So if we're asking how or what questions, it's going to give us valuable information. So the more questions you ask, the more you listen, it's going to tell you more about what this person thinks. And the more you know about what they think, the easier it is for you to respond. So these are some reasons why it's really important to make sure to respond to the actual reality. Always ask yourself that. before you respond. Is what I'm about to say the actual reality? Is it? Should I respond right now? So respond in a way that benefits you and the other people. And think about it. Where's a recent situation or conversation or relationship that you have and you responded in a way that didn't match reality? And compare that to a time when it did completely match reality and notice the difference. Definitely share this with someone who will benefit. If you haven't already, you can go ahead and like the audio and subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate everyone who's been subscribing lately. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope to see you on the next video or the next audio